I'm Bob Naidu. I'm the Director of Product Development for hardware at the Truck Bicycle Company. The way I like to describe it is anything that goes into an electronic that we make at the bicycle company, our team develops. So that includes sensors, it might be HMIs, displays, our e-bikes, anything that goes into the bike, our team develops. This is my beautiful family. We live in Madison, Wisconsin. Waterloo is a very, very tiny farm town in the upper, kind of maybe 45 minutes northeast of Waterloo. I am taking a very different approach to this one. I wanted to come represent the cycling industry and just talk about where I think the challenges and the opportunities are to get these sensors on bikes and to kind of realize the opportunity of what V2X can really deliver. So with everything, I like to talk about who the customer is. So who actually needs this technology? Let's start there. So this is typically an inner commuter or it's an outer commuter. It's a person that's using vehicles, transportation. They're prioritizing reliability. They need to get to their destination. They need their bike to work. They actually value a lot of accessories. It might rain. They need a fender. They use lights so they can be seen. They're frequently stopping, so they're doing shorter rides, not big, long rides out onto the road. And then there's this kind of new part of our business, which is called throttle bikes. And so it's the idea, I know a lot of you guys have it in the motorcycle industry, but you push a throttle and the bike can go on its own. And it's become a little controversial because people will go fast with throttles and they aren't always cyclists. But also it's brought a lot of new cyclists to our industry. In fact, recently with People's the Bikes, we've actually seen a jump in participation in new riders, and we've actually seen a fall in enthusiasts. We're seeing a lot of people enter in with throttle bikes. Other types, I talked about commuters. There's also lifestyle, so it's people that live in the city, they go to the bike path, maybe the lakefront in Chicago, but they have to navigate infrastructure to get there. So they have to go to stoplights, they might be on a pathway, but they have to stop and cross a light and move across different parts of infrastructure. Students, bikes is a very low-cost way to get around, and then there's this kind of emerging utilities. So you see cargo bikes, you see people transporting their kids, you see people transporting and delivering different types of food as well. So also after that, what problem are we trying to solve? So you're seeing a lot of these charts up here. I think the biggest opportunity for V2X are the three charts that we see up here. So these are the scenarios from NHTSA that we've seen a few times, but they tend to be intersections, or they tend to be the mid-block, which is in the upper right-hand section. Those, I think, are probably the biggest opportunities for us to overcome. There also is blind corners, the idea that we have a building on the corner and we're not seeing each other at all until the last minute. Big opportunity, I think, with V2X to communicate that two-way communication. Distracted drivers, you'll see a little bit. We did a survey about distracted driving, the anxieties around that. That's certainly a big concern with cyclists. And then this idea of overtaking. So this is, if I'm cycling down the road, vehicles coming behind me, hits me from behind. We've done some stuff in the cycling industry, I think, to help kind of progress that safety around overtaking as well. So we took our social media and we actually ran a survey, and we have a fairly decent sized following, so we had almost 900 respondents to the survey, and we basically just asked them, like, hey, have you ever been concerned about your safety on cycling? No surprise, 84% of people were concerned about their safety. I think the big takeaway here is it didn't matter what they were doing. It didn't matter if they were on the road, if they were riding gravel, if they were on a bike path, if they were on a mountain bike. They were very concerned. In fact, like even a mountain biker going to a single track mountain biking trail will ride 1 to 2 miles on the road to be able to get there. As we dove in a little bit, we had some hypothesis about, hey, where are these scenarios where you're really, really, really concerned? Can you kind of weight them for us? So no surprise, the one on the far right, 4.56 out of 5-point scale, was distracted driving. Everyone in that 84% is very concerned about somebody not paying attention, looking at their phone while they're driving. On the far left, you can see vehicles not seeing you on the road. I think just having a conversation with my colleague over here, and he said, you know what, yeah, someone hit me on the road intersection and they didn't see me, and that's very common. It's what you read in the newspapers all the time. And then the three middle ones, I think, are also opportunities for us here with V2X, which is just navigating intersection infrastructure, right? Crossing, trying to change lanes. And so these are the anxieties, and it was interesting. We had over 1,200 comments with the survey where people were telling us about what their anxieties were, describing where they got hit, describing where they're really, really concerned. So you can see cars are passing too close, changing lanes in front of me. Simply do not see me, it comes up quite a bit. or just passing too closely and not seeing me as I approach the intersection. So, I think this is the opportunity for V2X because it really can accelerate and solve a lot of this stuff. What's the cycling technology look like today? So how are we proactive in the industry? So we have lighting, we have daytime lighting, we have nighttime lighting. Lighting can be seen. We can see that integrated into bikes. It can be integrated into the back of helmets. We're seeing a lot more actually full integration into helmets, which is great. Fluorescent colors, it does look geeky as a cyclist. We all have our neon colors on, but fluorescent colors don't occur naturally in the environment, so they're really easily seen by humans. So it's a really, really effective way for you to stick out while you're on the bike. And then reflectivity. People think that fluorescent clothing will help you at night. It actually doesn't help you at all. You want a little bit of reflectivity, maybe like a badge here. We actually see it integrated onto wheels as well. And then there's sort of this newer emerging thing over the last 6-7 years, which is radar. And so there's very low-cost radar that typically like $150 to $200. You put it on the back of your saddle or on your seat post, and it sends you a little alert. If you have a head unit on the front on a computer, it'll give you a sound. It'll show you how many cars are behind you. You see little dots trailing behind. You can even connect it to a mobile app, have your headphones in, and you'll hear the alert on your phone as well. And this has been one of the fastest growing categories in cycling, and this allows a cyclist to know cars are behind, move over safely over to the side of the road so that everyone can get out of the way. It's also a really good gesture. People get really upset when you don't move over when you're passing, so I think there's some goodwill there as well. And then there's video as well, and video, I think we're just starting to scratch the surface with video and detection. I think we probably could learn a lot from the people in this room about video. Really, it's kind of just recording your either really bad accident or you getting hit. So, that value proposition is a really tough one, to spend all that money on the technology just to record. So that one's not quite there yet. I think we have an opportunity to accelerate. I wasn't sure if anyone would actually define V2X, so I wanted to at least put up the slide here so we all understand what we're talking about. So V2X, so it's vehicles to vehicles, drivers to pedestrians, could be a combination of vehicle to infrastructure or vehicle to pedestrians, scooters, bikes as well. So getting that communication going two-way. So one of the most important things I want to talk about was the challenges that we have. So I've actually worked on 2 different consortiums, the Coalition of Cycling Safety, which is how I'm here today. I also worked on the Vulnerable Road User Consortium. I've been working with vehicle OEMs, e-mobility companies, and I think we started to chip away at some of this stuff, but this stuff is real, and I think it's really the brutal facts for how we overcome this. So the first thing is, it is just way too expensive. We come in, we take this hardware, we put it on our product, and the value proposition is really hard. You can get into a bike light for $15. These technologies can cost as much as $200, $400 MSRP once you get them integrated and put on there as well. And as you move up into $200, $400, although it doesn't seem like a lot, it's actually a lot less customers. It's a very premium price point, so you're not actually capturing the masses overall if you're moving up. And then just the development costs and return on that investment. So it's a lot of technology, it's a lot of certification costs, and so taking that and moving it into a consumer base, which is much, much smaller than your typical cyclist with a light, justifying those development costs and getting it out there is also a real challenge. It's just too big and too heavy. Cyclists do care about weight. They care about how their bike looks. They care about where you're putting it. You'll probably see demonstrations where you see big bricks put on the back of a bike. And, I know that's where we're starting, but we got to get that smaller, right? We got to get it smaller. We got to get it weighing less. It doesn't have to be a lot. We're putting cameras on the back of bikes now, so I think we're becoming a little bit more acceptance that the safety technology is good. Battery capacity. So we certainly have a lot of e-bikes out there, and e-bike is growing. But most of the bikes are acoustic bikes. Acoustics is what we call bikes that aren't e-bikes or have motors. And essentially powering all this technology is really hard. It can only last 30, 45 minutes if you're leveraging all of this technology in one box. Global standards around the frequency, it seems like we're starting to move in the right direction there, but really getting everybody globally on the same path. We develop something, we certify it to be global. We're a global company. We distribute globally, so we want to make sure that when we're making that effort, that it can be used everywhere that we're selling our product. One of the very interesting cycling industry stuff is that not all the cycling industry and bike manufacturers have technical expertise. We actually have like Garmin and Wahoo, and they tend to make the head units. And then we have other companies making radars, and so sometimes the cycling industry doesn't have this technical expertise in-house. And actually one of the more difficult things that we do is just working with our bike teams to get technology into the bike. It's a really small tube to create holes, and it compromises our testing standards and things crumpling. So it's a really, really difficult thing for us to do. And then the other piece is just everybody has their own mobile app in cycling, right? So let's use the mobile app, use the phone. You know, getting that integrated in each of the vehicle, or each of the bike manufacturers. You know, that also there isn't one unified app that everyone's going to overall. And then the other big one I want to talk about, and this one was something that I think opened my eyes more than anything being on these groups, is that the idea of the personal safety messages and creating standardization around that. In the vehicle industry, you guys are used to this. You know, what's going to come through, what's the standard, doesn't exist for the cycling industry. And so we've got to come together as a group and say, okay, like if I'm in the middle of Atlanta and I have 50 bikes going by, is it going to tell me 50 times that I have a vehicle going by? There's situations like that we have to kind of figure out and handle and come together as a collective group to solve. And then the last one is just the adoption of IoT on bikes. Really in its infancy, we're starting to see companies put it in there, they're leveraging it for security and recovery. In fact, Europe's way ahead, I think, of all the other countries as far as having connected IoT, because there's some insurance benefits from security and having it integrated. But we're just kind of starting there, and that's, I think, when we really start to leverage, I think, the impact of V2X. It really is a chicken and the egg situation, you know. I want to be real frank with it. I think, you know, I want to put this $200 very heavy thing on your bike, and it may or may not tell you that a vehicle is behind you. When we developed radar at Trek, it was like we could never miss a vehicle. And I don't think that this is necessarily the case. I don't think we need to be at 100%. You know, I think we can find a way to enter into this and detect a car, but if a car goes past and the thing's supposed to detect it, then it needs to detect it, or something does. And I think the more vehicles that we can get on the road and the more confidence that we can get people, you know, like I said, Trek's out in Waterloo, it's a huge farm country. You probably could take, you know, one of these devices out there for 5 years and never detect a car with anyone out there on the road every single day. So, you know, I think this is a big opportunity for us to continue that deployment. There is opportunities, though. I think when I've worked with the Coalition of Cycling Safety, Mobile Road Consortium, we've gotten so much closer in actually identifying this stuff because we've talked about it. I've learned so much from the different vehicle OEMs about how fast a car moves, how quickly, what a big deal it is to stop the car via ABS, you know, automatic braking technology. And so I think we just have to continue those conversations and chip away at the cost, chip away at the things. And it's really this mutual understanding between the groups that find a solution. The appeal of this thing, it is the holy grail. Everybody hears about the technology in cycling. I'd say there's people on my team that are very motivated. It is the holy grail. We can have a huge impact, but we have to kind of overcome some really big challenges. And I think we can start. I think we're starting to get a lot closer, and there's a lot of people doing really hard work to get us there, but we got to reduce the weight. We got to continue to standardize both the communication and the messages that come through, and then we just need a lot more widespread vehicle adoption. And I think we really can start cooking with gas. That is what I have. Any questions?
Good morning. Thanks for that presentation. I'm Nathan Masick. I'm a senior transportation planner in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and also a cyclist. And I guess my comment is more of a comment than a question, but it's a point. One of the things I've noticed that I value in the cycling environment is the connectivity. For example, I use my Garmin device with earpieces and such, and the Bluetooth connections between the Garmin device and with the signals that I get in my ears, but also the Garmin device is connecting with the Internet of Things and its data sources, providing situational awareness alerts like construction ahead or hazardous conditions ahead or heavy traffic volume. So I just wanted to point out that I see that as a pretty high value feature of V2X in the cycling world. And so how that can be integrated, and I ride a Trek, by the way, also, how that can be integrated on the bike itself that may be an opportunity or an area to explore. And I don't know if you've begun to explore that. That would be working with those third-party devices that are specific to cycling, but also are connected to the larger, connected environment, such as mobility.
Yeah, absolutely great point. You know, Garmin, I think, has done a great job of advancing. They kind of led the way with the radar technology that, you know, I think has been kind of wildly adopted. You know, they do, you know, I think if you hit start, it'll actually send a text to your family members. They can track you in real time, you know, so they can know where you are and that you're still moving. Sometimes it gets me in trouble at the coffee shop. It's like, hey, I see you're at the coffee shop. Back here, but that's a really good point. Garmin has done a really good job advancing some of this stuff with pedestrians. So.
And that's not the only one, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But there's the opportunities, the opportunities with integrating the cycling and motorcycling with the larger vehicle.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Bo. Then I would like to ask Gernot Lenz from the city of Vienna.